applause going as we welcome our next two guests to the stage. Here to tell us about an amazing company called Tilray, I welcome two gentlemen to the stage. CNBC reporter Frank Holland and CEO of Tilray, Irwin Simon. Oh, you can make some more noise than that.
How's everybody doing? A lot of chairs up here. Almost 420, on 420, pretty exciting. That's it? Okay, good. Is it 421 already? Well, happy 420 day to everybody. Of course, I am joined by the CEO of Tilray, Irwin Simon. We're gonna have a talk today about cannabis, what else? Also, Canadian LPs, US MSOs, legalization, reform, and why Tilray doesn't list on a Canadian exchange and buy a US license. Much more of that coming up. But first, I don't know about you guys, but if you're on Twitter today, a lot of talk about 420, about cannabis, a lot of emojis, a lot of memes, a lot of stuff going on. I personally posted that I'm gonna be talking to Irwin today here at this conference, and I certainly got a reaction. A lot of people wanna hear what he has to say, and a lot of people have a lot to say to you. So first question, what's the state of cannabis? You're someone with a lot of insight. You talk to a lot of your colleagues in this industry. You're a producer yourself. Where are we at in the world of cannabis today?
So good afternoon, everybody, and welcome. And as Frank said before, happy 420. I know you can't light up in here, but we have brought the next best thing, Sweetwater 420 beer, which I'm not even sure we can serve here. But after the cocktail party, we have plenty of Sweetwater 420 beer and other great products upstairs for you, and maybe you can light up, I don't know. Listen, great question, Frank, and the good news about being interviewed by Frank right now, I don't have cameras on me, and it's not a live interview, so I can cross my legs and sit up and be myself, which normally am. You know, the cannabis industry is, I gotta tell you, it's such an exciting industry, and after 28 years building a consumer packaged goods company from zero to $3.5 billion companies in natural organic foods. And when I started that in 1992, 93, people thought I was a tree hugger, I was some weirdo or whatever, and nobody would eat plant-based, nobody would eat natural organic foods, and you know, went on to build one of the largest natural organic food companies built around brands. And I don't know if any of you have ever been to the Natural Organic Food Show in Anaheim, California, which would get over 100,000 people a year, 1 million square feet. This industry reminds me so much of the natural organic food industry. The natural organic food industry in the US today is well over $100 billion in size, and this industry will go here to that. This industry will actually, I say, surpass that. If you step back for a second here, and look how many people are here. And it's not like you want to come to Miami, it's not like you want to get out and travel, because there's investors, there's retailers, there's growers, there's bankers, there are so many different, you know, classes here that are looking at this industry. So we are in an exciting time, and where else is there such an exciting industry? So, you know, go back, Frank, and just mention to you, I joined Aphria back in December of 2019 when Aphria was in trouble, was going through a short report, going through, you know, a hostile takeover, and basically almost out of cash. And, you know, within a year, bringing in the right people, was able to get Aphria into a great position. Unfortunately, that was similarity with a lot of other Canadian LPs, and perception out there is a lot of the Canadian LPs, you know, basically didn't spend money right, overbought assets, a lot of short, you know, reports out about them, and there was some bad actors. So, black cloud over Canadian LPs. But step back for a second. Canada today is the only country in the world where adult use cannabis is legalized. There's no one else, growers else around the world. And Canada is the same size as California if you want to come back and look at population. What's important is this here. You know, Tilray will own Canada. It is the largest in Canada today, and it will get bigger. So to step back for a second, This is an industry that's 3.5 years old. Because of regulation, because cannabis is not legalized in the U.S., you cannot bring in the fidelities, you're not bringing in the institutional shareholders. And basically, you know, today, who are my shareholder base? And it's a great shareholder base because I love retail shareholders. They today are probably 80% of the shareholder base of Tilray, but we've traded 25, 30 million shares today. If I was on a Canadian stock exchange, I might trade 200,000 shares today. So stepping back, this industry is going to continue to take off. If you come back and ask consumers today, if you come back and ask constituents today, 90% of constituents want medical cannabis legalized. 65 to 70% want recreational cannabis legalized. If you look at Canada, Canada got about $18 billion of tax dollars over the last 3 years. So multiply that by 10 and look at the tax dollars that we're losing in the US. Canada created over 150,000 jobs, $6 billion in infrastructure. So step back for a second, if it was legal at the federal level in the US, what it could do. So I get asked all the time, why can't you own New York? Why can't you do that? Why do you trade on NASDAQ? You know, people are confused. What is legal, what is not? Why are MSOs out there owning, you know, licenses in Colorado or California? So with that, our politicians need to pass the State Bank Act, need to pass the MORE Act. What we need to do is this here, in regards to social justice, we got to get in front of us. Those that have been penalized and jailed, let's get them out and reward them. Let's create jobs for them. And there is so much out there that cannabis research knows from a medical standpoint. I get stopped all the time. How do I, you know, what is the right product for sleep, anxiety, pain? We've doing a lot of study in regard to epilepsy. So everybody that's here today knows the benefit. But what we have to do is get Congress, and you know, Schumer was supposed to pass his bill today, supposed to put in place his bill today. Now it's delayed to August. And you know, I've talked to some lobbyists all the time. What's August? 5 months away from November elections. What's going to happen in November? So if I had to say one thing, you know, I'm frustrated about where we are in this industry. I've never been in an industry before where I, you know, had to deal with the bureaucracy and had to deal with the regulation. If you want to sell a product, you can sell a product. So that has to, you know, Frank, when you come back and ask me, what is my feeling about the industry? Phenomenal industry. There's a lot of money to be made. There's a lot of opportunities. But until we take the handcuffs off and get some regulation out there and clarity, we're going to be in kind of a, you know, confusing state.
So talking about products, you mentioned some of the headwinds, reform, legalization, some other questions about the capital structure of some of the companies. Let's look at some of the upside. Tomorrow in the state of New Jersey, here in the U.S., we're going to see recreational sales begin. Long lines are expected. People are expected to come from both New York City and Philadelphia, two of the top 5 biggest cities in the U.S., to cross the border to get access to recreational cannabis, something certainly lawmakers, business leaders, investors, big banks are going to be paying attention to. Do you think this momentum that we're seeing right now at state level legalization, it's an estimated 250 million people across the U.S. have access to either legal, medical, or recreational cannabis? Do you think that's a catalyst for that reform to happen this year, whether it's the Safe Banking Act, the MORE Act, the State Reform Act, or possibly the CAOA?
So number one, you just said, you know, be long lines. You know, in Canada today, we have 3 million square feet of grow. We have spent close to $500–600 million in building out greenhouse facilities, and please, anybody that would love to come visit, you know, there's the wonders of the world. Visiting 3 million square feet of a cannabis grow facility should be a wonder for everybody, okay? Just don't cross the border going back into the U.S. until you change your clothes. But, you know, the big thing is the investment to build out greenhouses to grow when you do get a license. And you just said something, Frank, about the lineups tomorrow. And that is the whole thing. It's legal from the state of New Jersey, but then they're going to be coming here from Pennsylvania. They'll be coming from New York. What's got to happen is no different if it's from the liquor industry. Do we have the one-tier system, three-tier system, and whatever, and you're able to sell cannabis, in different states and not just in one state. The other thing is this here: how do you market to consumers today about the safety of it? You shouldn't smoke and drive in regards to keeping it away from under 21, etc. But what are the benefits from it? So there is, again, and you will see lineups in that to buy it in New Jersey because it's new. But again, is it done in the right organized business fashion that there is? And I think that's what's important today. Now, what am I hoping for at Tilray? So Tilray today, and I put out a plan in July of last year how Tilray was going to be a $4 billion company. And people said to me, are you crazy? And maybe I am. But the thing is this here: Canada will get to $1 billion for us, basically in winning share and doing future acquisitions. Today, because we cannot own anything in cannabis in the U.S. because we're listed on the NASDAQ and the Toronto Stock Exchange, our plan is to buy spirits businesses, beer businesses, or food adjacency businesses, because one day legalization to some degree will happen, and ultimately they're brand names. And the name of the company is Tilray Brands, and I'm about building brands, and how will brands differentiation from just selling cannabis. I hate the word weed, marijuana, joints. Again, how do we take this industry to a whole different level and brand it and make sure we have, in regards to going through the right regulatory, the right quality, your potency, what kind of strains you're getting is very important to us. And that's where this industry will go to the next level. So with that, if we're able to do this from a federal level, no different than we sell alcohol or vodka and that today, you're not going to have your lines. You're ultimately going to have a regulated industry where you'll be able to go into a store and be able to buy product. Listen, I hope one day you can walk into a 7-Eleven, instead of buying a beer, you can buy a beer or a seltzer with THC in it instead of alcohol. And that's kind of what my hope is in regards to why we own a bourbon company today and why you own a beer company. So, Frank, yes, there's going to be lineups tomorrow. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to share in any of that. And the same with New York, because I cannot own a cannabis license here.
Let's stick to your point about the potential for consumer packaged goods brands having cannabis in them. Right now, edibles and drinkables are less than 10% of the U.S. market. Similar numbers for the Canadian market. What do you think is going to be the catalyst for people to be more accepting of different forms of cannabis besides flower?
So I come back and say this here, and I'm seeing it in Canada today. And listen, that is why we are going to be so well positioned in the cannabis world, because of the Canadian market and what we're learning. If I walked around and opened up a lot of handbags here today, or went over to different men, you either got edibles on you or you got a pre-roll. And ultimately, come back for a second here, where the flower industry, where it's great, where you have to do your grinding and you got your rolling, pre-rolls are going to get bigger and bigger today. Vaping is going to continuously get bigger and bigger. But the whole edible category in regards to gummies, whether for sleep, anxiety, and pain, and ultimately, when you walk into a bar and order a draft beer, can I get a draft today with THC instead of infused with alcohol? And let me tell you that the big liquor companies, the Diageos today, the Pernod's, and all those companies, they are looking at this industry because they know once legalization happens, that's what's going to cannibalize a lot of the spirits business. So it is ultimately going to be big business. That's why you saw Constellation make their entry. That's why you've seen Altria make their entry. That's why you've seen BAT. But the thing is this here, like myself, they're public companies, and everybody is afraid because it's not legal from a U.S. Listen, I will not say the name of a company. I know one of the major beer companies, they don't want to be in THC even though they know their customers want it, because their CEO is afraid to come to the U.S. because he may get stopped because they got a cannabis company with THC in it.
You don't want to tell us which company?
No, I will not tell you which company.
What a teaser. Looking also at the other side of the business, we spent a lot of time talking about recreational cannabis. What are your thoughts on medical cannabis? We see a lot of medical patients turn to the recreational market because it's just cheaper. Do you still see potential for growth in the medical market when it's more expensive?
You know, you come back and look at how much money is spent on medical research, and ultimately, you know, what is the oxycodines in regards to opioids, et cetera. And I can't tell you how many questions I get asked about cannabis for pain. If I asked how many here, put your hands up, you have trouble sleeping at night, and whether you're taking Ambien or melatonin, stop. Have a little, you know, vape at night, or have a little, you know, gummy at night. And I guarantee you, it's going to change a lot of your life. If you come back and listen, in regards to pain, in regards to anxiety, and some of the research that we are doing today in regards to epilepsy, in regards to, and I've unfortunately know multiple cancer patients with taking their chemo, and they would not have gotten through it if they would not have had cannabis in their life. So again, there's a lot of the big pharma companies that want to get into cannabis, but the wall there is because of legalization.
So do you believe that federal legalization would still remove the stigma? I mean, if it was federally legal, would that, you know, generate more interest from these big companies? Because the social stigma still exists.
You know, again, it's no longer, you know, from a federal standpoint, I don't know if federal legalization needs to happen. What needs to happen is a Safe Bank Act. And you go back, who ultimately decriminalized and descheduled cannabis? Which president? Which president? Anybody know who decriminalized? It was Nixon. I mean, so come back for a second here. I mean, and I come back with stats here in regards, no one has ever overdosed from cannabis. Maybe you pass out. And I'm not saying that, you know, if you drive while you're, you know, high or something like that, you could not have, but there's more effects from an alcohol. There's more effects from, yes, other drugs, and has it led to other drugs. But I got to tell you, and we spend money at Tilray on research and the benefits from it. And the last thing, and let me tell you, I was, again, when I took on this role with, you know, Tilray, I'm like, oh my God, I sit on school boards, I sit on all these public company boards. My kids, when they ask them, what does your dad do? He sells cannabis. Are they going to have any friends? Am I going to get kicked off all these boards, et cetera? But I got to tell you something. There's not a meeting, there's not a time, and being in the natural organic food industry, I used to get questions about food all the time, that so many people are interested in the cannabis and the makeup of cannabis today. And it's, again, where the movement is, it's millennials are moving this industry tremendously. And if you come back to baby boomers are using this for sleep, pain, and anxiety, are moving this industry. So again, you're going to see big pharma. You're going to see, listen, is Philip Morris going to grow? Is Altria going to grow? Is smoking increasing? No. But they're going to have to get in there. In regards to the Diageos and those guys, ultimately, yes, you only can sell so many tequilas. You only can sell so many vodkas. But infused with THC, is that a big market? Absolutely.
What about the illegal market in cannabis? It's been obviously very persistent, long-standing. There's a lot of people, maybe even in this room, that they already like the person that they buy their cannabis from in the illegal market, and maybe some of them don't want to switch over. I know I personally have a lot of friends, they're happy with the person they get their cannabis from. That person might drop it off at their house, come in, take a puff. They're not looking to really switch to go to a legal provider. What do you think is going to lead people to leave the illegal market if you can get them to leave it all?
And, you know, one of my big, you know, movements in Canada is how you educate a consumer about the product. And that's where I go back to brands. Brand equity, brand equity, brand equity. And it's no different than the alcohol industry, where there used to be bootleggers, or you went in there and processed moonshine with distillers, whatever. You don't see that anymore. But one thing is important is this here. You know how the product's grown when you're buying it at a legal store. You know the potency that you're getting. You know if it was grown with pesticides. You know the checks and balances that goes through. And that's ultimately why today, you know, over 50% of the market in Canada, you know, is the legal market. So there's still a big illicit market out there to move over to, you know, a legal market. And I think that's important. But that's why I go back to why brands matter and why you got to educate. In Canada, there's limitations of how you can advertise and what you can say. And we're, out there today lobbying the government to change that, not to go out there and have big billboards. You're not going to see us, which I'd love to next year, advertise in the Super Bowl. You're out there to advertise why cannabis from buying it at a legal store is something important to do.
Irwin, we're almost out of time. One last word on the future of Tilray and the future of cannabis, just in North America, in the U.S. and Canada.
Listen, the future of Tilray, and a lot of you out here are my shareholders, and thank you very much for your support. And I don't like the stock performance out there any better than any shareholder does. But I'll tell you what, no different than an Elon Musk and building a Tesla and electric car, and everybody thought he was crazy. And I'm going to buy my first electric car because look at gas prices today. In regards to where the cannabis industry is, ultimately, we will be making money, cash flow positive next year. We will, try hard. And again, a lot of this has to do with legalization. But we're a diversified company where we got a strong business in Canada. We got a strong business in Europe, and I believe cannabis will legalize in Europe. Sometime this year. It will take a year before it ultimately comes through. And we're going to build a consumer packaged goods business in the U.S. with adjacencies that one day when legalization happens. And then when legalization happens, because I'm sitting here today and it's like buying a lottery ticket, what does legalization look like? Is it a 1-tier, 2-tier, 3-tier? But we have a business that can jump into it. If free trade can happen, we can ship plenty of product from Canada into the U.S. If not, we will have a balance sheet that will allow us to buy things, so we have options. So, what do I see? We see a cannabis company that has a lot of expertise in growing, a lot of expertise in building brands. We're a global company around the world. We're diversified. We're cannabis, we're spirits, we're beer, we're food. In Europe, we have a medical distribution company. We got a strong management team, a great board that's built around strong ESG and good governance. And I've been part of a company before that's built a $3.5 billion company. So you bring it together, and I got to tell you, with a lot of good luck, because we can have all the smarts in the room, but luck is important. We will get there with your support. And again, what I can't control is the politicians, okay? And that's the unknown, Frank. And that's why I'm going to make sure we're diversified and get sales and get EBITDA. At least alcohol is legal. And, a lot of these alcohol companies got good multiples out there. So I look forward to that and being profitable and giving back to our shareholders and our consumers. Thank you.
Irwin Simon, CEO of Tilray.